So, how lives matter?
Yes. Who am I talking to? Omnizor?
Yeah, you can call me Omni.
Okay.
So you
Omnivore,
were
I hope
saying
not.
how Francione makes ridiculous claims. I would agree. I don't agree with everything he says, but your issues are with his claims that reducitarianism are harmful.
hmm
Why would that be?
Well, because he's first of all straw manning reducitarianism as if it is an end in itself, as veganism we know is an end in itself, when it's not. It's a tactic, an abolitionist tactic. It helps move us toward a vegan world.
No, I think he's aware that it's intended to bring people into the quote fold, but he disagrees that it's a useful tactic.
Well, again, he personally recommends reducitarianism to people, so he just refuses to call what he promotes, which is eating vegan some meals of the day, reducitarianism, when in fact it is. That is
He tells
reducing
people to do
your
that?
meat intake. Yeah. He tells people who, well, just like I do, people who say, I'm not going vegan. Um, I care, but I'm too ingrained in my habits. I don't have time to go do this vegan challenge. But I want to do something. I tell them, okay, so have you thought of maybe eating vegan sometimes? Maybe eating vegan once per week? Maybe eating vegan meals? Maybe eating vegan, I don't know, at restaurants? Eating vegan at some
Yeah,
point,
that's
accustoming
that's that's
yourself.
not the same thing because when people's main objection to going vegan is that it's not sustainable, I couldn't possibly do that, or it's too this or that for whatever reason. There's no vegan food in my area,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of stuff. Do you feel a sense of words? The only uh, supposed obstacle in that case is that they don't even believe it's possible. So challenging them to actually try it so that they can see that it is possible should
Mm-hmm.
be for them to actually go vegan. And if it's not, then they've not presented all their reasons against going vegan.
Well, okay,
That's not the
so
same thing as opening, by the way. It's okay if you do it 6 days out of the week, just so
well,
long as
hold on.
you don't do it 1 day out of the week.
Who's saying that it's okay to do it the other 6 times per week? I'm telling people this
Anyone
in the
who advocates meatless Mondays.
well, I think you're misunderstanding it, because personally, how my organization advocates it, we talk to people, we have them concede, understand that they think it's wrong to hurt animals for no good reason, that veganism is a requirement. And almost, I'd say 99% of people who I talk to will concede this. And they'll say, yeah, it's wrong. I just do it because it's a habit. And I'll tell them, listen, there's this vegan challenge. You can try it for 22 days. Let's talk about all the vegan foods you already eat, everything that Francione would love. And the person will say, listen, no, I'm just too addicted to it. I don't think I could do that challenge. I don't have the time to do this challenge. I want to do something to work toward there, but
Yeah,
I just don't know where to start. And I tell them,
at
okay,
their
well,
conversation because they're telling me that their time is more number of deaths they're causing.
again, yeah, they'll just. What would you tell that person? I mean,
I would say, okay, I'm done with you. Go on to the next person who's actually more logically receptive.
do you think that most people who you talk to and who care about
No, I
animals
believe
are
most
going to
people
go
are
vegan
fucking
overnight?
idiots.
Okay, well, so why wouldn't you get that person, the one we just talked about?
Because I'm not going to lower my standards to that of idiots.
Yeah, but what if you can get them to reduce their meat intake by 15%? Why would you not ask them to do that if they're willing to do that?
If objectively on balance, them eating less is the ultimate result of any sort of conversation with them, then in the long run, it could be said that they're causing less suffering. But the precedent you set by saying that it's acceptable to do it.
Well, wait, hold on. Where do I say it's acceptable? I say
it's absolutely implicit.
so really. So if I were to say,
Are you not necessarily accepting what they're saying when they say, "Oh, I don't have the time for that"?
well, no, I understand that they're not willing to. They consider it too inconvenient. So I want to show them, no, it's not. Do it slowly. If you can't do it overnight, do it slowly. And if that's going to be more sustainable for you, start here. And once you're used to that, take the next step, and then take the next step. And again, foot in the door is well researched as a sales tactic. People are objectively more likely to do what you want if you get them to do something small first. There's all sorts of research verifying this. So This isn't.
Yeah, I
This
understand
isn't,
that. I'm
this
asking whether or
isn't
not
a
that's
philosophy
ethically.
discussion. This isn't a philosophy discussion. This is an empirical debate. The facts support promoting reductarianism reduces suffering and promotes more people to go vegan. It makes people more likely to go vegan. It results in a
The
world which
problem
is
with
more
this
amenable.
is that you're not talking about simply buying a product. It's not just one and done. We're
What do you mean?
not talking about that. No, we're talking about somebody making a lifetime commitment to not causing harm, and
Okay.
it's predicated on an ethical agreement.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So, do you think that who's going to be more likely? Who is veganism going to be an easier sell to? Someone who's a vegetarian, so only eats dairy and eggs, or someone who eats dairy and eggs and 4 types of meat?
Well, definitely go for vegetarian.
Okay, so if we could do something which would result in people either eating meat less often or becoming vegetarians, would that not make a world in which vegan activism would be much easier? It would
There's
require
also
smaller
the third
change of
option
people.
of arguing for veganism.
Well, who's not arguing for veganism?
You're
explain
arguing
to
for
people.
reducitarianism.
What are you talking about? If people, well, here's the thing: certain people are at certain stages. So if I'm talking to someone who already is a reducitarian, they realize, all I need to do is just cut out a few small things. Sign me up for that challenge. That's not too difficult for me. It doesn't require much sacrifice on my part. That's something easy, which I could implement in my life. If I'm talking to someone who has never even considered skipping meat for one of their 3 meals per day, obviously that person is not ready, is not at the place where they're willing to actually inconvenience themselves to go vegan. So I'm asking them to do something small. And again, the research indicates that once they've done something small, they're more likely to do the big thing.
You
The
can
next
say that
activist
all
who
you
comes
want,
along.
but that doesn't change the fact that constantly being vegan is also a constant pressure to go against social norms. How often do you see it that there are other people online, even on YouTube, who are like, oh, I've been vegan for 10 years, and you know what? I just couldn't do it anymore. And they roll out all the same fucking excuses they evidently have never. If they weren't committed to it in the first place, does that not mean that makes sense that they're more likely to give it up as well?
Well, again, if you look at the recidivism rates of veganism, most of those people never return to eating animal products at the same rate that they were before. They continue.
I don't care.
In other words, what do you mean you don't care?
I don't care. I care so long as they're actually being moral.
Wait, hold on. So you don't.
Statistics. There's so much bullshit about people that are CowLivesMatters that say they're vegan when they're just not. Like,
well,
there's so much of that bullshit in the
Well, so we can't trust statistics. So we should just base it on our feelings.
I'm not saying you can't trust statistics. I'll take the statistics you're giving me at face value. But what you're telling me, provided the examples you're given, is that you're analogizing selling a product to accepting a long-term, honestly, countercultural attitude.
Have you heard of cognitive dissonance?
Yes.
So are you familiar with the experiments where you ask someone to sign a petition about, for example, an environmental issue? That's what one of the researchers was about. Getting people to sign a petition about environmentalism. And those same people are approached in a couple of months and asked to donate a lot of their time or money to an environmental cause. And most of those people are willing to do so. The same people who are asked initially for the large thing, almost none of them agree to do so. So that's evidence that asking someone for something small causes them to think, to reflect on their behavior. Hold on, I signed that petition. That must mean my behavior doesn't match with my values. It must mean that I actually care about the environment, or else why would I have signed that petition? That doesn't make sense. And so their values actually shift. Similarly, you can look at...
I understand. Just not perfectly, and not a perfect analog to what we're talking about.
Well, sure it is. I mean, if you have someone eating Meatless Mondays or signing a petition for an animal rights cause, they reflect on their behavior. They say, wait, hold on. Or here's a perfect example, getting non-vegans to come to animal rights protests, which I think is one of the most powerful, wonderful things we can do to get people to go vegan. And I was actually one of those people. Before I was fully vegan, I went to animal rights activities. And
yeah, you were a hypocrite.
okay, well, so what? So I looked at my behavior.
So
and
everything. So you're talking about establishing
hypocrisy is what we
who
rely
don't
on.
even follow through on their positions.
Hold on. Hypocrisy is what we rely on. So if you want to go to a culture where people are not hypocrites, where people don't care about animals, hypocrisy works to our advantage. Most people are hypocrites. And that's why you just simply need to make salient their hypocrisy. You need to make them make that connection. Hold on, you're right. I think it's wrong to hurt animals. I just said that. You're right about that. They're just like my dog, and yet I'm doing that. That compels people to change their behavior. Now, similarly, as I was saying
so
before,
it's not enough to also draw attention to the hypocrisy in having a meatless Mondays, but not molestation-free Mondays.
well, hold on, let me finish. So getting someone to go to an animal rights march, and there are so many anecdotes demonstrating this. They see, hold on, what am I doing at this animal rights march when I'm not even a vegetarian or a vegan? What's going on with that? It causes people to actually change their values, and they actually they care about this. The same thing with people who go plant-based for their health. They find themselves actually open to the moral argument, persuaded by it, because their behavior is the behavior of someone who cares about the issue, and they no longer have a personal investment in this issue. So changing behavior is actually a powerful means of changing values.
Yeah, I don't see how that is. I mean, you get normies advocating, we close down SeaWorld or some shit, and
that's great.
You may say that's great, but
you don't think so?
No, the cognitive dissonance has not disappeared.
Well, again, if you have animal rights people approaching those people, if you have them becoming friends with them, if you have one of their friends just mentioning to them, which we have so many anecdotes of people who advocated against zoos, and then they just had like one of their non-vegan friends, hold on, you care about those whales, but you eat meat? That's often all it takes for those people. And it's no coincidence that a huge percentage...
often how it takes, and I strongly disagree with that. If my own experience is any
What's your own experience?
My own experience is that the vast majority of people will refuse to change.
Well, again, why don't you ask them to do it gradually? Most people will agree to eat less meat.
Primo example. Have you heard of veggie boards?
No. I think
Veggie Boards is the largest vegetarian and vegan internet forum there is.
Okay.
There is a standing rule on that website that vegans cannot go into the vegetarian forum and talk about veganism.
Okay. That's pretty weird.
Yes, and that is a bannable offense.
Interesting.
It was an offense that I was repeatedly struck down for, even when people in the vegetarian forum asked vegan questions.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying it's strange that those people would live in such close internet proximity to people who would point out their hypocrisy, and they're not moved to change their behavior.
It's not about their proximity or not being moved to change their behavior. It's that they specifically want to protect the feelings of the people who feel like they're having their views attacked. Because when they're vegetarians, they feel like they've done enough. The vegetarian forum is larger than the vegan forum. That's just how it is.
Well,
and that's where you get the most inclusive environment. We got to get as many people into it as possible. And yes, some of them do go to the vegan forum, but they're specifically prohibited from making that argument because we don't want to push them too hard. That'll drive them away.
Well,
it's stupid.
Well, I agree with that. That's stupid. I'm not sure how it relates to reducitarianism, though.
No, because it's a prime example that people are absolutely defensive against this. They're defensive about having their views challenged, whether they're vegan, whether they're vegetarian, whether they're carnivore. Most people are like this.
Oh, absolutely. That's why
in all areas of political discourse.
Definitely true. Well, that's why I lecture about using the Socratic method to get people to non-defensively explore their own views. And as I said, about 99% of people who I talk to very kindly and with compassion will just open up and say, listen, yeah, I feel bad about what's happening to animals. This is one of the first times I've really made this connection. And a lot of those people will just sign up for Challenge 22. But I know that for a fact that most people who sign up don't actually participate in the challenge. So I tell them, listen, you don't need to. If they're a person who's already talked to vegans, probably already tried good vegan food, they already are close.
I'm not even
close to the 100
defending
points.
Challenge 22.
Well, what do you mean?
If you're talking about Francione's thing, right?
No, Challenge 22 is just a Facebook group for people who are trying veganism for 22 days.
Okay, I'm not really concerned with the try challenges. I'm just talking about the cost.
I think
What are you
Francione, sorry, I think he would support Challenge 22. I'm just saying that would be like the purely vegan message. Try this vegan challenge. And in this group, if people do participate, I think most of them do stay vegan because we provide them with a community of helpful, non-judgmental, shaming people.
Non-confrontational, you mean?
Well, no, we're people. Well, in our organization, if someone says they slip up, instead of getting angry at them, we say, "Listen, I had the same problem. Here's what I did. Read this book. This change blew my mind."
You don't have to get angry at them, but you also don't have to fucking baby them. Literal baby steps. These people are by and large adults we're talking about.
Well, no, I mean, as I said, if someone, like, for example, sometimes someone says they slip up on fish, so I just tell them, listen, I read this book called This blew my mind. I never knew this stuff about fish. Or I say, listen, I watched this film. It blew my mind. Here's what helps me not be tempted. I try to, go to this page and remind myself of stuff.
If they said they slipped up on fish, then it's implied that they already know that they made the mistake. Why do you need to remind them?
Well, we just provide them with constructive, we help them not make the same mistake again, whereas unfortunately some idiots on the internet
That's a question of willpower. It's not a question of whether you have all the facts.
Well, no, people need, for example, if people find themselves forgetting about the dairy industry such that they sometimes slip up and eat dairy, I would tell them, listen, here's this documentary about the dairy industry, or every week, why don't you go through my Facebook page, which I edit, and check these videos we upload about dairy. So anyway, I think we're getting a little off topic here. The point is, there are certain people who aren't close to these 100 points, which we say that if a person has 100 points, they go vegan, and usually most activism is giving them additional points. And if you happen to meet someone with 80 points, you might convince them to try veganism, but most people you meet will not. And so when most people, after they agree with me that it's wrong to hurt animals for no reason, we don't need to eat them, we do it because it's a habit. They feel they're addicted to meat in a sense. And I mentioned,
most people will admit that already.
Yeah, of course.
But they're not going to change anything.
Exactly, but they're not. A lot of these people are not willing to. They're a little hesitant to try the challenge. So I say, listen, I just want them in the group because I know they'll face cognitive dissonance. Once they're in that group, they'll feel a little bit of pressure on them to actually participate, at least look at the stuff. So I say, listen, no, you don't need to.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree
that's
with
what
that.
That's what I call reducitarianism. I say, listen.
Well, no, that's fine. Just having them in proximity to the discussion, to the topics, to the information. Exactly. That's all great. That's all fine.
Yeah, and I tell them.
What I'm objecting to is reducitarianism and the meatless Mondays and the baby step and try it for the weekend. Just be vegan for the weekend.
Well, hold on though. When I'm telling them just go to the group, you don't have to be in the challenge. I'm telling them maybe you see a food which you really like, which someone made vegan. Why don't you try that? Why don't you try eating vegan a few days per week? That is reducitarianism, because I know
that's also only concerned with the diet, and that fucks up with a lot of people too, because people don't realize it's not just the diet thing.
Well, yeah, but
why don't you try pleather shoes sometimes and realize how crummy they are? Just give it a shot. You might find you like bad shoes.
Well, I love Francione. Well, I made it sound like I think Francione is full of shit, but I think he has some great insights on a number of topics. Actually, especially on effective communication. I think he really gives some very useful insights on how to talk to non-vegans. One of my favorite quotes of his is, "Until we stop eating them, nothing changes. After we stop eating them, everything changes." Have you ever met someone who makes the connection that it's wrong to behead an animal for a burger, but thinks that a leather coat is acceptable to buy once every 10 years. Well, of course not. Obviously, you're not vegan if you buy a leather coat or a fur coat, but it's really just a matter of educating those people who already accept and are making 365 changes to their diet and their lifestyle based on that. It's just a matter of education. Oh, actually, turns out leather is not a waste product, it's a co-product. And the people will stop doing it at that point if they're already willing to change their diet.
Yeah, I'm still not on the hook for this Reducitarian angle.
Well, so about the Meatless Mondays thing, the organization which I work with, we had Nick Cooney give us a lecture about it at our vegan conference. Have you ever, do you
Nope.
know who that is? You don't know Nick Cooney?
No.
Oh, well, he's great. I would recommend watching some of his lectures. Some of them are recorded on YouTube. 1 second, hold on. Close. I would recommend watching his lectures on Reducitarianism because, yeah, I mean, he's more convincing than I am. I'll just say that. And, I mean, our organization works with, I think, we work with, like, universities, and we promote putting plant-based foods into the school and saying, listen, Meatless Mondays are vegan Mondays in Israel. So on Meatless Mondays, we give a discount for these foods, and we kind of exert social pressure. And again, it's not from a moral angle, it's from an environmental angle, I think. Yeah, eat vegan on Mondays. And again, people who eat vegan 1 day of the week, they only have 6 more to go. They're quite a bit closer to actually following a plant-based diet than they were before, if they get used to that.
You know, if you look at like the economy and you consider how many people throughout history and on a daily basis say that they don't need to give to charity because they already pay taxes, is that not already blatantly indicative of the sort of attitude you're working with 99% of the time?
With most people? Well, yeah. I mean, I'd say that the reason people eat meat and animal products is because everyone else does it. We don't have the brain power to ethically calculate every one of our decisions. We just look, just like other animals. We just look around. What's everyone else doing?
It's really not
That's
a
what I'm going to
brain
do.
power thing. It's just an actively consideration thing.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I was not simply lacking brain power when I was vegetarian. I just wasn't thinking about it.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we actually don't. Imagine if every single item at the grocery store, you had to do like some calculation. Where did it come from? Which humans were involved? How was it shipped? Imagine if you had to consider every single one of those things in every action of your life. Obviously, we can't do that. Our ancestors who did that probably didn't have enough energy left to reproduce. So we do base most of our decisions on what's called social proof. We just look to what others are doing. That's why when in societies where slavery is legal, people think, oh yeah, of course that's okay. Everyone's doing it. Oh, of course meat's okay. All the good people I know do it. That's why it's very important to emphasize that veganism, plant-based eating, I usually say plant-based, but is becoming very popular. I mentioned 600% increase in Britain, blah, blah, blah. I mention this because people need to know that it's not weird to do this. This is, everyone's going to be doing it soon. You're going to be considered weird if you're not on board soon. That's what I like to emphasize because, again, activism, good outreach is, I'm sure you've noticed, much more about sophistry than about philosophy. I mean, you can leave philosophy at the door. It's about psychology and sophistry.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean it's about sophistry?
Well, it's about making the person like you.
Kind of mean like selling it to them.
Definitely.
Yeah, fuck that.
Well, you should try selling it to people. You'll see that.
I refuse to do
change their
that.
behavior.
I'm not going to bow to fucking emotional appeals. I'm sick of doing that.
Well, I mean, do you do much?
I was never persuaded by emotional appeals anyway. It was.
Well, you're not a normal
I would
person,
not
then.
want this to happen to me. Therefore, it would be hypocritical of me to do it to somebody else.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
what made you go vegan, if you don't mind me asking?
I'd be curious
What
to
made
find
me
out.
what?
What like who or what persuaded you? To
I
go vegan?
literally had never met any vegans prior to going vegan, and I never debated the topic with anybody.
So how did you find out about it?
Yeah.
I simply thought about it one day. I had been raised vegetarian since daycare, and
Your
my
parents, like,
entire
hippies
family
or
was
something?
vegetarian, but nobody ever
amazing.
discussed veganism or anything like that.
Why were they
Did they just not
vegetarian?
know about it?
They thought it was a combination of like sort of like ethical health stuff, but really they barely talked about it. They openly said, "Hey, if you want to eat meat, that's cool. You do you." So they
Wow.
were super receptive to that. I decided not to do that. And when it came to one time, I actually went to a Renaissance festival one time.
We
And
were just
I've
talking
gone
about
to the
that.
Renaissance festivals years
Yeah, we
after
were.
years after years after years. I'm so used to that. But one time I just went up to it. If you've ever been to a Renaissance festival, you probably have been to one of these little huts where they have like the honey sticks, and they
Honey
have
sticks.
a little. It's something. It's kind of like a staple that they have at these fairs, where there's a
Sounds gross.
glass display where they have a cross section of a honeycomb, and they have the bees crawling all over that, and they're just trapped in this small glass. I never really thought about it. But the last time I went to a Renaissance festival, I went up to this thing. I was, I had money in my hand. I was prepared to buy the thing. I looked at the display. I thought about it. I took like 60 seconds basically running all the counter arguments I had through my head. And at the end of it, I turned around, went back, and I turned vegan overnight because I couldn't think of
Wow.
a justifiable reason for that.
And I mean, how were you so
You are
consciously?
muted right now. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Shit.
I can hear you.
Yeah, now?
Here, let me leave and come back.
Okay.
There are some people who are like him or like me or you who will just sort of immediately understand. But unfortunately, it's kind of a rare quality.